All right. So today I have Allie Melendez, who is a TV host, an on-air broadcaster, a multimedia host, also a yoga instructor, right?
Yeah. Oh my God, we'll
um,
get into everything. It's a
welcome,
lot.
Allie, to the podcast.
Thanks so much for having me, Amy. I'm so excited to talk to you, and I'm just so grateful to be on your show. It's exciting.
Yes, and I'm really grateful to have you. You know, a lot of my guests I have on, I have a previous sort of relationship with, whether it's I've done work for them or whether they're in my professional network in some way. You are one of the people that I have just sort of followed along with on Instagram, all the amazing things that you're doing. And when it came time to sort of plan out this second season of the podcast, you were on the top of my list. I was like, okay, I'm gonna ask
Oh,
Allie. Um, for so many reasons. One, you present obviously so well. That's your
thank
job.
you. Oh my gosh. But yeah, it's literally, I get paid to do it. So I'm happy that it is paying off.
Yeah,
Thank you.
it is paying off. You do great work. We'll get into the work you do and all the things that you are involved with right now as an on-air talent. But you know, the topic of this podcast is called Women Influencing Sports, right? So the topics that I get into, aside from the day-to-day and, you know, asking you questions about your work and all that, the overarching theme is really around driving gender equality in sports entertainment and the greater media. And with what you do, there's so much to unpack. And what's interesting and exciting about it is that we're seeing so much more coverage in the media and in the mainstream around representation for women in the media, right? With mainstream
Yeah.
TV and shows. You know, I kind of was making notes to myself before we started. As I mentioned, I'm a big note taker, and I was making notes to myself. Some of the shows that I have been watching and loving are tackling this issue of, you know, representation and gender equality across sports entertainment, the greater media. So with what you do, you sit right in that space and you have an insider perspective on how that feels, what the conversations are that are happening inside the newsroom and on the court and backstage on all the shows that you do. So I'm really excited to hear your perspective on all that.
Yeah, definitely. Well, where do I even begin? You
Yeah,
know,
well,
like you mentioned, a lot going on. And yeah, I'm excited to talk about that as well because I mean, just my journey throughout the years in the sports industry and, finding my confidence, finding my voice throughout a male dominated industry, like you said before, has been such an incredible journey for me. And there's so much that I can share. There's so much to unpack. So literally just tell me where to begin
yeah.
and what you want to do first.
All right. Well, let's begin with giving everybody just a little bit more of an idea of all the stuff that you do. Okay. So I'm going to rattle them off and
Love it. Love it.
we can start by talking about any one of the, you know, things that is most current and most top of mind for you. I know you have new opportunities popping up all the time, but so I have listed that you host a show called Well Life NYC.
Mm-hmm.
You are a host on Yes Network.
Mm-hmm.
You host a show called BetOnline All Access. I have questions about that. I have a lot of questions about that actually, because sports betting is so hot.
Mm-hmm.
You're in arena host for the Long Island Nets, which you mentioned is the NBA G League team affiliated with the Brooklyn Nets, the New York Red Bulls, which is MLS, and most recently sidelines reporter for New York Riptide National Lacrosse League. This is so much, and it is so incredible. And I don't want to get too far ahead of myself here. I have so many questions for you around, you know, managing it, how they differ, you know, one thing versus the other. But what is, you know, where do you want to start as far as like what you're working on now today? What is most top of mind, new and interesting for you?
Yeah, so I guess the most recent thing I just wrapped is, like you mentioned, Well Life NYC, which is my new show coming to the Yes Network app in April. Well, I'm so excited. It's my baby. And that is different than really anything I've done before, because it's not so heavily based in sports and athleticism. And I do have a background, like you mentioned earlier, with being a yoga instructor, being a group fitness instructor. I've taught boxing classes before, indoor rowing classes before, yoga, of course, which is something I still do for myself. And that journey was always something that I was doing simultaneously with, sports hosting and reporting and all of that. And I almost like separated them in my brain, because fitness and wellness and mindfulness has always allowed me to feel calm, to feel at peace, to feel ready, and to feel really grounded. So that was an outlet for me to be able to be an extremely, successful on-air host and help me to do everything that I do in the media. So I knew I had to stick with fitness just because it made me feel good mentally and physically. And I knew that I wanted to stick with, sports and entertainment and hosting and all of that. And both of them kind of was yin yang for me, but I never thought of putting them together and broadcasting and having a show that just highlights, day-to-day wellness and day-to-day physical activity that people can do to incorporate to live a healthier lifestyle. So background, I hosted a show that was on the Yes Network, not the app, the Yes Network TV show, that TV station that was called Stadium Authentics. So this is right in the middle of the pandemic when that first started. And it was almost like QVC meets sports memorabilia. So we were kind of like just auctioning some of, the best sports memorabilia to the best sports fans, because at that time we couldn't have any sports fans there was no fans at any arenas. So it was almost like this feeling of, how can we bring the stadium to the fans, right? How can they feel like they're sitting in their home, but also kind of feel like they're not just stuck in their home and they're still a part of their favorite teams and still exposed to that energy. So that was what that show was all about. And then when COVID picked up more over the holidays, 2020, we were just like, okay, we can't be with, athletes. We can't be really together right now as a crew. We'll pick this back up in a few months. Unfortunately, that show never picked back up, but it led us to, creating other shows, and just through constantly maintaining and nurturing my relationships with the people at Yes Network, I was able to land this role of host of Well Life NYC. So and we'll talk about how to kind of find jobs in media and all of that stuff, because I think it's really important. But networking is what I always say, right? Who can you reach out to? How can you nurture the relationships of the people you've already created a relationship with in the industry, and not necessarily reaching out to them to get a job or to have an opportunity, right? Truly caring about them as a person goes to show so much more than just reaching out every so often to be like, hey, do you have something for me? Genuinely caring about them and asking about them and talking to them, I feel has allowed me to get to where I am in my career, because I care about people genuinely. So nurturing relationships and never burning bridges, right, are just two things that I think are huge when you are trying to get into the industry and when you're trying to grow your brand and yourself. So that's my latest and greatest baby, is Well Life NYC, taking everything I love and know about, wellness and fitness and broadcasting and mixing it all together. So super, super excited for that to come out. And then the rest of the stuff is, that's sports related, which I've been doing for a while. So yeah, it's great. I don't want to keep talking. I mean, stop me at any point, but
Yeah, well,
I can get into that.
Let me jump in. You said a lot of things that I want to react to. A couple of the things. So fitness, were you an athlete or were you just always really fit?
Oh, thank you. No, I'm kidding.
Meaning like fitness is a big part of your life, right?
Yeah, it's a huge part of my life. So growing up, I was in dance, gymnastics, all the girly things. And then in middle school and high school, I ran track.
Okay.
So I was a sprinter. And I think that is when I fell in love with running. I kind of fell in love with that first, just because that's something that truly allowed me to get out of my head and just fully into my body. And so that was one of my first realizations that, wow, this helps me just to become super centered and super calm and super grounded, which again, I still do today all the time. I'm an avid runner, and that helps my broadcasting career immensely. After that, after graduating high school, I wanted to explore other things. So I went into the boxing. I went into, how can I push myself and challenge my body in other ways that allow me to feel good and, do something different. So that's where yoga came into play as well. And just trying new things and falling in love with it along the way.
Yeah, I think the fitness aspect is really important, and I'm glad that you mentioned it. I knew we would get to it, but I like hearing about it as part of your strategy. It really is sort of the magic bullet when it comes to what we'll get into later, which is how do you manage it all, and how do you keep the sort of energy alive day in and day out? How do you keep, the face on when you are in front of the camera, and I totally get what you're saying. I think it's 100% accurate. Taking care of your body is number one. It sets you up for success because, like you said, grounded, calm, feeling the endorphins are real, right? And so I really can't, after doing everything that I've done in my career and becoming a parent, the times where I feel most balanced and grounded are when I'm exercising most days. I won't ever say every day, right? It's most days. And I'm very aware of that. So when I sort of slip into the periods, when you are a parent, it just sort of happens and you can't kind of avoid it. When you slip into the times where you're not doing it, I'm definitely so aware of the fact that here's why I'm grumpy today. I know why I'm grumpy today, right? Because I haven't exercised in 3 days. And that's how real it is. So I love that you bring that up. And I feel that it's probably a trend across people in your business that staying physically active and physically fit is really key to your success.
Absolutely.
Okay. And so you talked a lot about networking, which is so important in any business. I live in sports entertainment and media. It could not be more important, but I think you touched on some awesome stuff there when you talked about genuinely caring about the people in your network. Now, this is really hard to do because when you're talking about genuinely caring about people who also can help you do things, who also can open doors for you, I think it's an interesting conversation. And I think a lot of people look at it and they're like, well, how can I actually do that? Right? How can I actually exude and make people feel like I care about them in my network, day in and day out when I have all this other stuff going on? And maybe the people in my network aren't physically present in my life. And especially with COVID, now the people in my network are everywhere. So I'd love to hear a little bit more from you on that, around how do you nurture your network? How do you, authentically bond? I mean, it's about bonding with people, really, and making them feel that you are real, that you have also something to offer to them, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you don't want to just give off the energy that you're only open to receiving and not giving, right? So I think that has to be reciprocal with any relationship that you have, just keeping your energy open to giving and receiving, and that's what makes a relationship thrive, and that's what makes everyone feel good about being in that relationship. So a few things that you touched on. One is social media is gorgeous, right? And we might have, this idea about it being like, oh, it takes up all our time and our energy. That's not wrong, but of course, it's all about how you use it, right? And how your use is intentional with it. So if your intention is to scroll aimlessly, then yeah, you are giving a lot of your time and energy that probably won't benefit you or your career. But if you're intentional about, hey, today I'm going to spend X amount of time, reaching out to this person, and this person, 3 people on my list, which I'll get to making a list after, which is equally important. And I'm going to just reach out to them and be like, hey, just saw you got a new car, like looks great, enjoy, right? Whatever it is, if you know that someone is interested in donating for, whatever cause that they're passionate about, why don't you strike up a conversation about saying, hey, well, I'm also super passionate about that, if that's authentic, or, I love that you're doing this, it's so inspiring, right? So there are ways where we can connect to each other and make someone feel good and make us, genuinely want to connect with them through social media. That doesn't have to be complicated. And that could be LinkedIn, Facebook, whatever social media of your choice. But like you said before, we're not, unfortunately, in a place where we're seeing everybody day to day. And because of that, that's why social media is so important right now, more so than it's ever been. It is truly an amazing free network marketing tool. And so if you're intentional about using it in that way, it can open doors for you. It can secure relationships. You can feel closer with people that you're talking to day to day on social media than you do with the people in your life, your real life. So there are so many ways to use it. The key is to be really intentional and clear about how you're using it so that the energy with using it and with talking to people on that platform is positive. Making a list, right? So I mentioned reaching out to people on your list through social media. Get so clear about what you want. What do you want, right? In your career specifically, do you want to be hosting for a team? Do you want to be sidelines reporting for ESPN one day, right? What is it that you want out of life? And it doesn't have to be something that is easily attainable or something that you can figure out right there and then. Just the overall, what do you want? And I think getting so clear with what you want and then working toward that is how you get it. Honestly, being super clear, putting that energy out in the universe, doing the work and maintaining connections is so important. So you have that list, you have that idea of what you want, you're super clear about it. Now, who are the people that can potentially help you to get closer to that goal? And that's where you can spend some time, maybe light stalking, I'm kidding. researching who it is that is the vice president of that network, who it is that is actively recruiting for that position, right? So who are the people that you can write on your list that can either directly or somewhat indirectly lead you to that goal? Of course, it's not on them to help you get to reach your dreams, but they could help. Connections help. So, who is on that list that can help you get to where you want to be? And then I think from there, breaking it down even further and saying, okay, well, this week I'm going to reach out to 5 people on my list. So 2 people this day, and then maybe the next day you don't want to go on social media at all. That's fine. The next day, 2 more people, right? So really be, again, intentional with your use of reaching out to people and just making and nurturing connections. And once you do that authentically, right, you reach out and say, hey, cute dog, right? I have the same dog, whatever it is that will connect you, that will start that conversation, start that relationship, can then lead to, I know you work for ESPN and I saw this position open. And now this person is saying, oh, well, we've had conversations in the past about my dog, this charity event. I follow her on Instagram. I see that she's interested in hosting. So they'll be more inclined potentially to want to help you out, to want to, pass your name to the right person, to want to view your demo reel, right? Whatever the case may be. Building that relationship does pay off. And so that's kind of my general advice. You can get, it's crazy the access that people have to personal information. It's actually it's pretty scary, honestly. But I know that there are a couple websites. There's I think rocketreach.com, hunter.io. I might have to double check on those, but those are just 2 of the many websites where you might have to pay a small fee, but you can get access to anyone's professional email. So like, let's say you're really going after it. You really want to reach the Oprah Winfrey of your industry. And you're like, I have nothing to lose. Keep reminding yourself, right? You have nothing to lose when reaching out. If they say no, or they say nothing at all, it's fine. You didn't lose anything. So just, again, being super clear about what you want, and connecting with the people that can potentially help you get there, and maintaining those relationships along the way in a genuine, authentic way.
Yeah. Great advice. A lot of great advice there, which it's very clear listening to you speak that you're a mentor.
Yeah.
Something that you do. And it's like, when I talk to people who are mentors, I find myself, I sit there, I'm like, I feel like I'm getting all this free advice. But what's nice is that it's a taste into how you operate. And I love being able to sort of help showcase that. So when somebody comes in and listens, they get a taste of, hey,
Yeah,
this is what it's like to work with Allie. And this is the way she thinks. And this is her mindset. And you sound like you make an excellent coach for budding and aspiring on-air broadcast talent. So thanks for all that advice. I want to jump into a little bit of a different topic here, based on the stuff that you're involved with now. So the one show that I circled in your bio is the BetOnline All Access.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And we know that sports betting has been growing since it became officially legal state by state. And you interview athletes on that show.
Mm-hmm.
I have a couple of questions. One question is, do you think that there is a trend happening as far as, when you're thinking about where talent is looking for new jobs? We see a lot more happening here with the commercials that are out there. You really can't go to any kind of sporting event without seeing a brand, two brands, three brands that are involved with sports betting, right? So is that an opportunity area right now?
100%. And I'm seeing a lot of women getting into sports betting hosting, which is like amazing. And now's the time, because a couple of years ago, when we were first learning about cryptocurrency and it was in its infancy, we were like, I don't know, what is this about? Whatever, right? And now it's like, holy shit. I don't know if I'm allowed to curse in the podcast, sorry, but there are so many people who took that blind leap of faith into this unknown world of cryptocurrency, and it has paid off tenfold for them. So the same thing is happening with sports betting, and not just from a bettor's perspective. Of course, you can win a lot of money and make a lot of money sports betting on anything from serious stuff to like silly prop bets, which we'll talk about if you're curious and just learning more of like the terms and stuff like that. But there's so many ways you can get into it, from just playing around with it and seeing if it's something that feels good for you. But also from the broadcasting perspective, there are so many new shows coming out that need talent. And unfortunately, I don't, I have so many things going on that I'm not plugged into job sites. So I can't say specifically which job sites, off the top of my head, that would be looking and listing these types of positions. I just know from word of mouth and from being in the industry and from hosting a show how much it's exploding, and how much, women are finding success in hosting this type of content, specifically through social media and through the people that I connect with on social media, which happens to be a lot of women in sports, just finding their own success through sports betting. So it's been blowing up. It's been so much fun for me personally. And it's been so much fun for me to see these women absolutely crushing it. And there are sports betting shows popping up all the time. I'm seeing this all the time, mostly on Instagram, with people celebrating, their new job, or people saying, hey, looking for a host to start my own digital betting show, right? The opportunities are everywhere if you're just open to researching, to looking into them. Again, connecting with people, find people who are hosting sports betting shows, find people who are working in production through hashtags and stuff on Instagram and LinkedIn, and see if you can connect with them. See if there's anything, any room for you at the table. And you never know, nothing to lose again by reaching out. So now is the time for sure to get into betting, sports betting, and learn about it as much as you can. It's actually not that difficult once you start getting the hang of it. I mean, like anything else. So, look into it, see if it's something that you're confident and comfortable doing, because if you are, there's a huge market for it right now, especially for females. I don't know why, but the trend is most places are who have their own sports betting shows, the hosts are females, which is awesome.
Right. And I'm seeing it just as a sports fan. How much did you have to educate yourself? I mean, did you have to go and learn about how to talk to athletes about sports betting? Because I would be intimidated. I'd be like, I can't do this because I don't know enough. And there are words involved with betting that are really intimidating for me. It's kind of like, going into like a calculus class where you're like, wait, what was that word that you just used? And I know I'm going to use it wrong. And you're a professional athlete and I really need to be credible here. So what goes on there as far as educating yourself and feeling confident when you're talking about something like that?
Oh my God, I love this question because there's so much to unpack with it. I think the very first thing is the language that you use. So a lot of doubt, a lot of I'm not enough, I can't do this word is scary, blah, blah, blah. Like that's what I heard, which completely went through my mind for the first few years of my career. Actually, I always doubted myself on something scary, something uncomfortable, something sort of unknown. And it's through that I've learned, my thoughts are literally my thoughts and words. Everyone's thoughts and words becomes their belief. So if you keep thinking, whether it's subconscious or not, that you are not enough, that, this shit is scary, that I can't do this because I'm not educated enough, because I'm not this enough. And women tend to do that way more than men. We tend to get in our own way way more than men. Men have this air of confidence about them, whether they're right or wrong, they can still be confident. And women tend to not do that as much. And so when I realized that I was getting in my own way from doing big things for myself because my own thoughts were creating this reality of I'm not blank enough. That's when I started to do a lot of internal work and self-development. It goes hand in hand with the fitness stuff, Amie. It's like everything I do to better myself inside and out helps to become more successful in my career. And so I did a lot of mindset stuff, a lot of rewording, story work, adopting new beliefs of truly feeling that I am enough, that something that I don't know is a challenge that I accept, something that makes me scared, makes me feel that I might be uncomfortable. Great. That means I'm going to grow. I'm putting myself intentionally in spaces that do make me feel uncomfortable. Not in a safe way, of course, I meant with my career, but because it challenges me to grow. And so I do. And so to your original question, did I have to learn all the terminology and what was that like for me? Yes, I totally did. I was really scared at first. I'm not going to lie. I was like, same as you. I can't do this. This is crazy. What is sports betting? I'm not doing this. Blah, 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 blah. And when I said, Allie, shut up, adopt those new thoughts, go over your new beliefs, right? That's when I started to actually do the research. That's when I started to actually watch the shows that are already on TV, the sports betting shows. I love the one on Cheddar, mostly because my friend Sammy is a producer on Cheddar. Shout out to you, girl. So, but it's easy information to digest, right? You don't have to be a pro. You don't have to know anything to start watching it and to start taking notes, researching the words that they're using, and then feeling confident about your understanding of it, which then leads to your confidence in using the terminology, so on and so forth. So like anything else you want to learn, you just have to make sure that you're in the right mindset to learn, to be open, to getting uncomfortable, and then moving from that and doing the research, doing the work, and not being afraid to ask questions, for sure. Like a lot of interviews that I do are live, and sometimes that makes me more nervous just because I'm on the spot. But for the ones that aren't live, like I'll fully just be like, hey, listen, I don't like what I asked. I'm gonna re-ask that. And they're totally cool with that. In fact, they're like, yeah, great, because it gave me a second to think about what I wanted to say about this bet and why I chose it. So we're all humans. So understanding that we've all come from a place where we didn't know what the hell sports betting was, none of us did, right? We've all had our own process of learning it and being comfortable with the knowledge and being comfortable with the terminology. And that's it, just keep being confident in the fact that we're all humans.
Yeah.
We've all, been there. And the more that you can get comfortable being uncomfortable, the better that you will be in this industry specifically, and the better that you'll be just with your own confidence. You'll feel more confident for sure.
Right. And great segue when you were talking about live versus interviews that are happening
Pre-recorded.
recorded. But just one thing that you said that I really wanted to repeat was you said it's a challenge that I am going to accept. And I really love that, because everything that stretches you as a person is a challenge. And really what you said there was, it's your choice whether or not you accept the challenge. And then if you accept the challenge, all you have to do is go figure out how to do it, and a lot of that fear, like you said, it's in your thoughts and it's in your words, but it's about, hey, are you going to accept the challenge, or are you going to chicken out? And what's the worst that could happen, right? But I think, like, with what you do, though, I mean, it's easy to talk about this because there are little challenges and there are big challenges every single day, right? But what you do and getting in front of the camera live is something that most people would not do in a million years. I would say that, they say like some of the biggest fears in the world are public speaking and, moving. But, to be able to day in and day out accept the challenge, I would venture to guess that some days the challenge feels heavy. It's like, today I'm going to go up and sit in that chair and do a live interview, and I accept the challenge today, or maybe it's just like, this morning, I'm going to accept this challenge. And then this afternoon and tonight, I'm going to accept this other challenge. And I'm going to also accept the challenge that I'm going to be exercising 5 days this week. There's so many layers of challenge. But when you talk about live programming, let's get into that, because before the interview you shared, and I love asking people, like, do you have fun facts? And, I want to tell a fun story. Improvisation on live TV, it cannot possibly always go as planned, right? And so give me an example of a time in your career, it can be any time in your career, where something didn't go as planned and you had to dig in to that mindset training that you have.
Girl. Oh my goodness. Okay. So, yeah, definitely. I'd love to share a story. My go-to story on this, because it really just couldn't, we'll get into it. Okay. So 2019, I was the in-theater host for the Heisman Award presentation. So my humble brag is I met, Joe Burrow, who was in the Super Bowl recently, and he was really, really down to earth, really cool. And I felt really good. We had 2 days of practice, and I just sat there as the main host, and Tim Tebow were kind of going back and forth, just practicing their talking points, blah, blah, blah. And I was just there, right? Taking it all in, being like, you got this, and all the mindset work and stuff anytime my nerves started creeping up. And we unfortunately never got to rehearsing my part. Now, this was the first time in Heisman history that they were including an in-theater host. So my role it wasn't on TV necessarily, it was between commercials and stuff to engage with the audience. Now, the audience is celebrities, pro athletes, past Heisman recipient winners, and, all the things. So it still has a heavy feeling to it, definitely a nervous energy to it. But I was, again, up for the challenge. we never got around to practicing it, but they felt really confident that I got it because I guess that's the energy I was giving off, which I am proud of that. But, in the back of my head, I was like, okay, I've been here for 2 days and I guess I'm not gonna, practice. So we're just gonna do it live. And that's gonna be that. Everything's going good. They're cueing me in my ear. I'm walking out. They have the mic on. Ba ba ba. I'm back. I'm forth. I'm like, I'm feeling great. I get to like the last commercial break, and it's the one right before we're about to announce the winner. And my mic isn't turning on, and they're yelling in my ear. They're like, "Come on, go, go, go! We got commercial breaks are only 2 minutes, maybe 2.5 minutes max. So." Time is of the essence for me to say what I have to say and get off the stage. And, it was just such a crazy experience for me because I really had a choice in that moment to, freeze and just let the nervous energy take over completely, or to just release all of that, use some of that fitness background to get out of my mind into my body and just go with the flow. So I chose to do that. I dropped the mic or whatever I did. And I was just making a joke about how, in a room full of celebrities, like you think the tech would work or whatever. And, I did something that was, again, just remembering they're all human. I'm a human. They want to see me succeed as much as I want to see them succeed, right? So it's a reciprocal energy when you're in front of an audience that you have to just trust they want to see you succeed and see what's best for you. And so just like when you're in the audience, right, and you see someone performing, you want them to perform well. Otherwise, if they're cringy, you feel weird. And then it's like, no, I wanted you to do well. And, it's an energy that they can feel. So just remembering that and just being a human in front of them and making them laugh and just still being able to make the most and the best of that issue, which they never resolved and we didn't talk about it, but that's okay. They were just like, what happened? I was like, the mic wasn't on. They're like, oh, weird. Okay, we must have. And I was like, all right, whatever. We should have practiced, but it's fine. And just in that moment, choosing to truly release and just give into the world, the energy, the universe, whatever, just let it go, let it flow. And that's what I did. And it totally paid off. And I think even Tim Tebow, so part of that experience was also meeting Tim Tebow and his then fiance. Oh my God, the nicest people, and hanging out with him and a bunch of other athletes backstage where I was just trying to remember, you're a human, they're a human, talk to them, whatever. Don't be weird.
You're like,
don't be weirdo. So
don't be a weirdo.
Though.
That's
and I've realized he was just as nervous to be on live TV. He was just as nervous for something to happen, for a hiccup to occur, for anything off the book to, happen and throw him off. And when he said that, I just felt this wave of, this shit happens and it's okay. It's about how we react when these things happen that really shows a lot about ourselves, but also helps us to, move on and move forward. And it was so great. That whole experience ended up being just wonderful and really eye-opening for what I can do in a moment like that, in a situation that goes completely wrong, and how I was able to react because of it. So it made me feel really good. And I'm super proud of that moment, even though it wasn't perfect, but what is perfection anyway? So it's okay.
What is perfection anyway? Right.
I know.
So that's an awesome story. So cool. You're getting to kind of hang with all these really famous people.
I know. It hasn't happened since, but it was cool.
You're right there with them, it's funny because sometimes, you might think to yourself, oh, I'm so intimidated. They might even be intimidated by you. You're probably getting to that point where they're like, oh my gosh, there's Allie. Oh my gosh, there's Allie. And you're walking in, but, so that's awesome. And, finding that calm, I think we keep going back to that exercise and that fitness. And you said it so well. You're like, I need to get out of my head and into my body. And when you can kind of release your thoughts, you can just move forward and feel calm. And so again, the stress on the exercise, the stress on the physical wellness, as it plays into the mental wellness for this type of career is so, so important. And that's what I'm hearing from you. And I'm loving those stories. And I want to move now to a little bit of a conversation around you as a mentor. So Wins, which is a brand I created during the pandemic, right? As I sort of kind of decided, hey, I have a passion project and I want to do this passion project. And then wait a minute, this can be my business. I can take everything I've done and I can make it Wins. And my mission is to obviously influence gender equality in the C-suite. And we did the digging and we did the research. And just like in the media, the broadcasting, TV, radio, and digital, roughly 20% of the folks in the biz are women. Roughly 20% of the people reporting on stories are women. Something like, I wrote down another stat. It was something like 37% of stories are broken by women, and all of these things are growing. Okay. And it's definitely a point in time. It's like a moment in time for women. Okay. Because as I mentioned earlier on in the show, programming like the morning show, which for better or for worse, a show that I really enjoy, but again, we're not going to get into personal opinion. I thought it touched on a lot of topics, but nothing in depth. It certainly touched on the topic of women in the media. Like, I don't know if you've been watching Hacks.
I haven't.
Okay, this is really,
I haven't even heard of it actually.
Hacks is Jean Smart. I think it's HBO, and she is a comedian, and I just love the show. But again, they tackle the issue of representation because coming up as, in this case, it was a comedian in a world surrounded by male faces. There are things that you kind of ignore. There are things where you look the other way, and because you're in it for your career, you're trying to get to where you're trying to get, no matter what's happening around you. And so because you have shared that you're a mentor, because you have a business, and in coaching people up, I don't know if it's specifically women, but coaching people up into the business of becoming on-air talent and staying in the business tells me that you have a mission. And whether or not it's like 100% of what you're focused on doesn't matter. But I'm curious, sort of what inspires that mission to sort of even want to mentor people, to even want to help others. What is that based in for you? And what advice do you have for these, aspiring talent?
Yeah, that's a great question. So when the pandemic hit, I had 117 jobs, like basically. And then it went from all that to nothing, right? So it was in the middle of March Madness. I was hosting then the Atlantic 10 men's tournament. And it was like the first day of the tournament. And we were so excited. And it was like all the fans were there. And then little by little, we were being told, now the NBA is being canceled and now this. And we're like, oh my gosh, what is going on? And again, in that moment, it was confusion. It was, like, what is the future of sports? But then as we learned, it's like, well, what is the future of just life? Like in general, like what is the future of our health and what's going on in the world? And it really opened my eyes to reflecting on why it is I went into the industry to begin with, right? So what is that purpose? What is that drive behind why I had so many jobs to begin with and clearly wasn't good at setting boundaries at that time in my life? I was saying no to opportunity, but it made me realize I am so driven by energy and connecting with people. And that's why I think about everything that I do, from teaching fitness classes to, hosting live in front of thousands of people or hosting on TV pre-recorded or whatever it is. I always aim to connect with someone through a screen, whatever it may be, next to me on a yoga mat. Always aim to connect with someone, always aiming to serve them in some way, and just really, again, being open to giving and receiving that energy, that positive energy. And that has always been the driving force behind everything I do, which is why I had so many jobs. But if you think about it, they all come from that same place. They all come from that purpose. So when I didn't have the opportunity to do anything, like basically all of us, I started to think about how else I can serve. Like, what else can I do at this time that will allow me to connect with people on a deeper level, that will allow me to serve, that will allow me to keep this energetic flow going in my life. And that's where the mentorship idea came into play. So a lot of people were that I was following at the time that I was really inspired by were, personal development gurus and people building nutrition coaching programs and business mindset programs, and a lot of programs I was seeing, a lot of digital programs that I was seeing that I was really inspired by. And so I was like, okay, this is really cool, but I don't think that's my niche, and that's not my niche. And then, so what is my niche, right? It's broadcasting, it's connecting with people, it's finding your confidence so that you can be your most powerful self stepping into a public speaking role. It's nurturing relationships, right? So I was starting to think, well, how can I use my purpose and my experience in the industry to serve? And that's when I came up with coaching and mentoring aspiring broadcasters. So that's up my alley. It is my niche. It is something that isn't done the way that I do it. I mean, maybe there is now, but according to my research, I was really the first one to be coaching aspiring broadcasters in the way that I was doing, and still continue to do today. So I actually started this group program called the On Air Institute, and I was leading groups of people throughout a 12-week course where we would make demo reels, we would interview each other, practice interviewing, go over tangible confidence tips, even if that's like, sitting up straight, having eye contact, keeping your chin parallel to the floor. These are all forms of power postures, which when you do them, you actually do feel confident. And so just tips like that and mindset work and, all the things that I've done to truly feel successful inside and out with my job and within my life. And that was amazing. And unfortunately, well, not unfortunately, things started picking back up again. So it was wonderful to return back to work and to be now giving my energy back to all the things and the places that I was doing pre-pandemic. But this is where the unfortunate part comes from. I realized I didn't have the energy to take on more groups and more people, as well as all the jobs that I was starting to get back into. So I made the decision to start working one-on-one with people. And I took a little step away from the group course program, which I'm in love with, and I really want to get back to that someday when I have a bit more time. But right now I work one-on-one with people. And so I know exactly how much energy I'm giving them. I know exactly what their goals are, so much so that they're very aligned with, my goals, and I know them as well as I know my own. And it's specific for people looking to get into this industry in one way or another. So maybe someone wants to start their own digital show and make a demo reel, but they've never done that before. They have no idea what to do. They don't know where to start. They don't know how to nurture connections. They don't even know where to find connections. That's where we work together, right? So I'll go through the whole process with them. And obviously I'll only work with people that I know the energy will be reciprocal and equal, and I can genuinely benefit them and their lives and their career. If it's something that, is a little bit out of my reach, or maybe it's a very niche thing in the industry, like specifically with sports betting, I'll point them to someone who I feel could be even better for them. So it's not even about money. It's not about like anything like that. It's truly this place inside me that it just feels so freaking good to serve people and to connect with people. And so I love it. I've had amazing client success stories, and I'm so proud of everyone. And because I'm still not as great with boundaries, they all have my number and we text and call each other all the time.
Of course.
I'm like, oh my God, I haven't worked with, for example, like Chris, I haven't worked with him in a few months, but we'll still text each other to be like, hey, I got, he just covered NBA All-Star Weekend, which was on his list. Like that was something we were working toward doing, and he did it. And he told me all about it. And I was just like, oh my God, like I love you. So I just feel so proud of everyone I work with and so grateful to be able to hold space for them in that way and to support their growth, because I think having a mentor is so important, especially when it's something that's not a traditional 9 to 5. It's really like, unless you land that dream job right away, or unless it's news where you have the same shift every day, typically in this industry, hours look crazy. You can have multiple jobs, some of them freelance, some of them contract, whatever. And, it's not always grounding energy. So when you have someone who can help you kind of hold it together and walk you through the process of handling it really well and being really successful in that space, it is so important and so valuable.
Yeah. I mean, I love all of that. I totally hear you, the group versus the one-on-one. I get that, right? It fits within your bandwidth because the world picked back up, and I feel that completely, in my world too. And you're funny because you're like, I'm still not great at boundaries, but that's what makes you part of what makes you so good at what you do is that's part of how you nurture real relationships, right? Mm-hmm. It's probably something that's inherently a skill of yours, which really lends itself to the work that you do. But it sounds like when you're mentoring someone and you're trying to show them the ropes and help them achieve their goals, I mean, you're going to do what it takes because you want them to succeed genuinely, right? And then you're going to develop a relationship with them. So of course you'd be texting each other on the weekends, and that's awesome because, a lot of women I talk to who have made it to the senior level, who are in the C-suite in sports, entertainment, media, they're like, sometimes the people that I mentor end up hiring me. The relationship flips at a certain point. The people that you're mentoring will get to a point where you might need them, or you might not even know you need them. So I love it. I think it's incredible. And also just want to mention that it's just wonderful to see and listen to you speak as a woman in this business. Because I always say that, just by being visible, just by doing stuff like this, just by taking on mentors, and just by getting as far as you've gotten and doing all the incredible things you're doing, other women see it. And so you're paying it forward just by doing it. So thank you for that. And finally, let's talk about your wins for a second. Wins was also created to help women celebrate together. In these businesses, it can be pretty cutthroat. It can be pretty competitive, especially like with what you do. It's like, how many people are going for the same spot, but I would love to see women get into the practice of celebrating their wins together. Yeah. What wins can we help you cheer? And maybe what are some of the things that you're working toward in the coming months that we can support you on?
Well, I just want to say one quick thing on the whole competition and because you're right. There's a lot of people who want to get in this industry, women who want to get in this industry, and not a lot of positions, or at least the positions we really want. So just remembering to stay super secure in who you are is really important, because Amie, there's a reason we go to our favorite fitness instructor. There could be 65 yoga instructors at the same studio, but we always want to take that one person's class. Why? Not because they're teaching anything different, because they're genuine to themselves, because we like something about them, right? So just remember, there's so many people going for these dream positions, but there's only one of you, and that's something to really always remind yourself of, especially as a woman starting out, where it can feel very overwhelming. Just reminding yourself that your superpower lies within you, and just being authentic to yourself in everything that you do. My wins. Wow. Okay. So Yeah, I'm just super excited for Well Life NYC. So, guys, download the Yes Network app, check it out. I mean, I would love to know what you think. Obviously, I know my perspective on it, but I'm so excited to see the editing magic that turns it into the show that we will all watch together. And yeah, I'm celebrating that, and I'm constantly celebrating small things too. I think just being in a state of energetically celebrating life, whether it's big or small, making your bed, brushing your teeth, whatever, celebrate it, because, if we are not celebrating ourselves and being our biggest cheerleader, then it's just no one else does that for us. So when we're feeling really good about ourselves, when we feel really like excited about life and excited to be, in a constant energy of celebration, I think that that's how we really raise each other up, right? When we raise ourselves up, we raise each other up. And when we feel good truly with ourselves, we can then hold space for others to feel good within themselves too. So constantly, I'm always celebrating wins. I'm like, yes, I did, got these cute crystal earrings like on sale. That's a win, just like whatever.
Yes.
Anything and everything that will just help you to fill up your own cup so that you can continue to support and fill up others in this industry and be, a mentor in your own right too, I think is really important too. So we just need each other. Women in this industry specifically, we really need each other. And I think it's really important to be there for each other, but you have to be there for yourself first. So I love wins. I love everything that it stands for, which is very aligned with me and my belief in life and my outlook. So yeah, I would like to celebrate my wins right now of Well Life NYC in particular. Super excited about that.
Yes. So Well Life NBC, or not NBC, sorry. Well Life
That's the next one.
NYC. Yes Network app, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Incredible advice. I am just eating up this advice. I am loving this advice. I particularly it's resonating with me, all the fitness stuff a lot. When you talked about you always go to the same fitness instructor because they have whatever it is that they're their own person. And it makes me laugh because with the pandemic, as you know, kind of not being able to go to the gym. And this was like a really hard thing for me. Like literally shedding tears because I couldn't go to my favorite classes. And then when the gyms finally opened again, some of the instructors didn't return. And in particular, this is just a little side story, but in particular, one of my instructors that was just the most incredible, authentic person, didn't return. And I literally asked everyone at the gym, I was like, do you have her number? I need her number. I need to find her. And it was like stalker status. So I was like, I can't imagine my life without her class,
100%. It's so true.
It's so real.
The energy that she gave you by being authentic in herself and what she was serving to the world resonated with you so much that you were genuinely upset, when you couldn't find her.
Yeah.
And that's the effect we should all have on each other.
Yeah. And she would work us so hard every week that we'd be crawling out of the room. And it was,
geez, what class is it?
It was like a hit, like an hour-long hit. And it's like craving that feeling at the end and the energy throughout and how someone could possibly get you to do all that stuff for an hour straight and that you continue to return. It was like magic, right? So everyone has their unique magic is what you're saying. And don't get stuck in the competition game. I love that advice. I think it's incredible. And I love how you kind of compare it, and everything that you do is rooted in mindset, is rooted in mental health, which is linked to physical health. And, the work that you're doing is incredible. I can't thank you enough for taking the time today.
Oh my goodness. The pleasure is all mine. I'm so grateful again and so excited to have had this conversation because it gave me a good opportunity to dress up and put a little makeup on for you. And I don't do that for a lot of people. All right. So no, thank you. Seriously though. Thank you. I found myself,
with learning audio, and I'm trying not to laugh out loud this whole time because it's going to ruin the audio clips, but you're so hysterical You bring such a great energy, and I'm so excited to watch what else happens with your career. I'm totally going to do Well Life NYC. I'm going to check you out. And I gotta tell everybody, get more educated on sports betting because the opportunities are exploding there.
They're here now.
So
Here
learn the
now.
lingo, figure it out, accept the challenge, right?
Yeah.
But thank you, Allie, so much for being here. It's been such a pleasure.
Thank you so much, Amie. I so appreciate you. And yeah, I'm just so excited to be here. It's great.